The events of the work begin with how a young girl named Edith Riegelhoff walks down the corridor of the rags to the altar, where her lover is already waiting for her. From a formal point of view, it should have been an impeccable ducal wedding, but nevertheless, the girl was very worried about everything, mentally calming herself because she understood that she should not worry. Walking down the corridor, young Edith saw that the eyes of the guests who were present at the ceremony clearly showed disgust, contempt, and arrogance towards her. However, there were those who looked at her with an insatiable gaze that was full of lust and incredible desire. Approaching her beloved, Edith thought about the fact that in this whole story of a seemingly ordinary wedding, no joy and happiness could be found, no matter how hard you tried. And so, the bride and groom approached the altar, near which stood the priest, who solemnly began the wedding ceremony. At the same moment, Edith mentally asked the priest for forgiveness, because she understood that none of his wishes would come true, and at the same time, the priest read a prayer in which he asked for a blessing for a beautiful man and woman. After all, the girl mentally told herself that today she would marry the person who despised her and would eventually cut her throat, yet she understood that, as before, misfortune would surely find such a helpless person like her. Next, the events of the piece go back in time, where a girl climbing the stairs is stopped by a boy who orders her to give him money. This surprises her, after which she asks him if he is gambling again. Such an answer upset the boy, after which he asked her if she had already forgotten who she was alive to which she replied and said that that incident was a long time ago. With these words, she angered the boy even more. In the course of the dialogue, the girl found herself on the edge of the stairs, while the boy still continued to pressure her and demand money from her. In the end, the girl asked him if he remembered how much money he borrowed from her, after which, she added, if can he return them. These words finally angered the boy, after which he approached the girl and, calling her not very censorious, pushed her down the stairs. After the senseless death that marked the end of the girl's unhappy day, she was reborn in the body of Edith Riegelhoff. After some time, when she approached the mirror and saw her new self, the girl was very surprised, because she did not understand who she was seeing. At the same moment, with despair in her chest, she fell to her knees and asked herself a mute question. Is this really the same transmigration of souls? After a few seconds, the girl heard a knock on the door. As it turned out, it was a maid who came to ask her mistress Edith if she had forgotten what day it was today. After hearing her new name, the girl was surprised, because she realized that she was in a novel she had read last night called Relinquish Obsession. Suddenly, the girl remembered Lise Sinclair, the illegitimate daughter of the Count family, who was a bright and innocent girl, and also as beautiful as the goddess of spring. As it turned out, because of her origin, the girl was attacked by the Count's family and lived a very unhappy childhood, after which she caught the eye of the Ludwig couple, after which she went with them to live in the duchy. However, when she arrived there, she met only fierce competition, without any concessions to win her heart. That is where the obsession mentioned in the title of the work begins. As it turned out, the role of Edith Riegelhoff was that she was a simple, greedy, and foolish thief who was blinded by love and tainted by jealousy. She was the one who was constantly doing any kind of sabotage to hurt Lise, because Edith was the kind of thief whose shenanigans on Lise's flower path were easily solved. Meanwhile, the newly married Edith sat in a chair and waited for the maids to help her. Meanwhile, thinking that Edith was from the play, was blinded by jealousy and did everything possible to kill Lise, especially since Edith did not care about money, because she grew up in the family of a count, who was a very caring father. After a few minutes, the maid turned her mistress to the mirror and informed her that everything was ready. Meanwhile, Edith, seeing herself, was pleasantly surprised by the work of the maid. At the same time, the maid told her mistress that the master, most likely, was already waiting for her, to which the girl turned and thanked the maid for everything. At the same moment, Edith rose from her chair and ran to the door, while the maid, meanwhile, was deeply surprised and astonished to hear words of thanks from her mistress. Running down the corridor, the girl thought that all she had to do was correct Edith's mistakes, especially since the girl remembered the plot of the play very well, and therefore it should not be a very difficult test for her. In the end, she smiled and told herself that this time, she could get the family's love for free, if, of course, she behaved very, very well. At the same moment, the girl finally reached her father's room, after which, opening the door, she wished her father good morning with a generous smile, but it did not take long for her expectations to be shattered. After all, the father, who saw his daughter and heard her wish good morning, became angry, after which he asked her if she did not think that it was already too late to call this time of day morning, after which he called it slow. These words upset the girl very much, and her father, meanwhile, asked her why she came here so late in the first place, after which he ordered her to close the door from that side, until suddenly the girl was surprised, because she received a notification, in which it was said that she was Edith Riegelhoff, at number 13, and that the identity verification was completed. At the same moment, she received another notification, which indicated that at this moment the synchronization of information from the memory was started, after which the girl went to some portal. At the same moment, the girl saw a scene where Edith, standing on her knees, asked her father for forgiveness, saying that she was wrong and would not make such mistakes again. Meanwhile, the girl looked at Edith and did not understand what it was, because as it turned out, an arrogant and impudent thief, it was only an image. After all, she was mocked and treated as a lower class. Once, she was even locked in the basement, and she asked to be released, because she understood everything. One day, her brother came to her and said that she needed to pay for the fact that she was fed and raised, after which Edith was very surprised and scared. After all, for everyone, the girl was just a walking advertising stand of her family, which was decorated with various luxurious dresses and very expensive jewelry. But when she was at home, she became a pair to be beaten. She was even humiliated by the servants. After all, she was the most expensive doll of Count Riegelhoff. Suddenly, the girl approached the beaten and tortured Edith, after which Edith asked her how she saw it, after which she asked the next question, in which she asked the girl if she could handle it. This question scared the young girl. At the same moment, the father rudely turned to Edith and, banging on the table, began to shout at her, after which he added that she had not been in her right mind since the morning. In the end, having calmed down a little, the man told her that today they had no right to make a mistake, because they could not allow the people of the Ludwig family to notice at least one tiny flaw. Because of this, the girl had mixed emotions, because she did not know what to do next, until suddenly, the man asked her if she remembered the content of that contract, after which he emphasized that she should take 3 maids with her, after which they can proceed to the next step. In the end, Edith had no choice but to agree with her father's words, after which she thought about why her family was the same as in her previous life. After a while, the girl and the earl accompanied by the butler were standing outside. Meanwhile, she thought that she should check the information again, because the current Duke Ludwig and Earl Riegelhoff had been rivals since early childhood. As it turned out, at that time, the power of these two families was very close to being equal. But, however, the Ludwig family made a great contribution to the war, after which they received the title of Duke. However, Count Riegelhoff believed that the ducal title was stolen from under the nose of his family. That is why he gave his daughter Edith in marriage in order to find information that could destroy the duchy. In the end, thinking about all this made the girl very sad, after which she began to calm herself down, because so far, everything is fine. But, nevertheless, Edith understood that she needed to turn all this into an opportunity. As it turned out, the girl knew how to find ways to survive in unfavorable situations, and therefore, she understood the fact that if she did not behave in the same way as Edith in the original work, then she would definitely be able to survive somehow. However, the girl understood that in almost all novels in which the heroine is transformed into a thief, there is some kind of crisis at the very beginning, and therefore, she decided that today she needed to behave differently from Edith in the original story. Arriving at the place, the girl saw in front of her the incredible beauty and size of the estate. Thus she was impressed by the grandeur of this building. At the same moment, she thought about what might be the reason why Count Riegelhoff was so not breathing evenly towards the Ludwigs, and in the meantime, the father was talking with his son, after which the young man said that the estate was as magnificent as ever, on that his father said that he did not see the point in this flamboyant luxury, because it was completely empty inside. As they approached the building, the men were met by a butler who greeted them and told them that the Duke and Duchess were already waiting for them inside. After which, he added that he would lead the men to them. Hearing this, the Earl smiled, after which he turned to his daughter and in a kind tone of voice asked her to go with them quickly. At the same moment, the Count stretched out his hand to her, and Edith was embarrassed at the same time, because she was surprised by how quickly the Count's attitude towards her changed dramatically. In the end, the girl had no choice but to accept her father's proposal, after which she thought that after all, she was going to leave this house in a week anyway, so she needed to find a way to survive in 7 Ludwig, in the same main scene of plot development. After a few seconds, the butler brought Count Riegelhoff and his family into the hall where the Duke and Duchess were sitting, after which he introduced the Count's family to them. Meanwhile, she understood that finally, she was able to see with her own eyes the characters whose appearance she could imagine only by reading the description in the book. After that, the girl thought about whether it was the same Duke Axel Ludwig and Duchess Jocelyn Ludwig. And meanwhile, the Duchess smiled sweetly, thanked the Riegelhoff family for having overcome such a path, after which she emphasized that soon the preparation of the table will be completed and they will be able to eat. After all, Edith looked at a boy named Cliff, who was the main character of the piece. At the same moment, she was convinced that he was incredibly handsome. At the same time, she noticed that his eyes were golden, as if they were about to melt. After that, her eyes fell on Lisa Sinclair, after which Edith told herself that this girl really looked like the goddess of spring, because she looked beautiful. Then, Edith looked at the man sitting next to Liz and realized that, most likely, he is her future husband. Looking at him, the girl literally drooled from his beauty. At the same moment, she asked herself the question, did she fall in love with him? After which she told herself that now she understood why Edith held on to him so much. Finally, the girl mentally began to describe him. She noticed his straight and sharp nose, as well as the chin line that creates a haughty image. After which, she looked down and noticed the man's broad chest, thin waist and hips, after which she wondered, how can a person in general be so beautiful? At the same moment, Edith realized that she looked somehow not very good, after which she decided that it was time to get a hold of herself and stop looking so closely at her husband, because he would not look at her anyway. After a few seconds, the meal began. The young girl tasted the dishes that the waiters brought. However, her father began a speech and said that the father's heart would not calm down, after which he asked the dukes how he could send his daughter like that. The same moments, Edith realized that it had finally begun. Suddenly, the earl put his hand on his daughter's shoulder and said that he would like her to take some maids with her, because in his opinion, his daughter Edith will be more comfortable with those who have taken care of her for a long time. At this, Duchess Jocelyn smiled awkwardly and said that their maids are second to none. At the same moment, Count Riegelhoff asked whether Duchess Ludwig did not bring any maids with her when she got married. After such words, there was an oppressive silence in the room, because none of those present knew how to react to it. At the same moment, Edith understood that this request of Count Riegelhoff was one of those that could not be refused, no matter how much she wanted to. But nevertheless, the girl mentally asked the Duchess not to worry too much about it. At last the girl smiled and told her father that she would be all right, and then turned to the Duke and begged him to forget the request, adding that she was getting married very young, and therefore her father was very worried about it. These words surprised Count Riegelhoff. After some time, when the Riegelhoff family gathered in their carriage, the Count began to shout at his daughter, saying that she had lost her mind, because she not only did not help him, but on the contrary, became the biggest obstacle. At the same time, Edith understood that it was from this moment that the story really began, after which she turned to her father and asked him if he had not noticed the expression on Duke Axel's face. Next, she told her father that he had asked such an obvious thing, thereby making her tense, after which Edith added that it was obvious to everyone why the Earl had asked for the maids, and finally, she asked her father if this marriage should not have dispelled their doubts. Hearing his daughter's speech, Count Riegelhoff was speechless for a moment. But nevertheless, gathering his strength, he asked his daughter what she could do if she was there by herself. At this, Edith asked her father to think carefully while she went there alone, after which she told the Earl that if she was there alone, nothing would happen, and moreover, the ducal family would on the contrary relax their vigilance. While Edith and the Count were having a conversation, the girl's brother was thinking about the beautiful Liz. Suddenly, the girl said that they urgently needed to dispel all suspicions, after which she emphasized that when she gained their trust, she would pretend to be homesick or ask them to bring her maid for a short time. Hearing this, the man began to think about his daughter's words, and she, in turn, asked him to trust her. Starting from that day, Edith walked like on the edge of a knife for a whole week. But finally, she is standing in a wedding dress next to her future husband and listening to the prayer of the priest. However, the girl was happy, because she understood that now she would not have to return to that house. After a few seconds, the priest finished the prayer, after which he asked the bride and groom to stand facing each other, and then he turned to the god Herschend and asked him to bless the wedding rings of the newlyweds, as well as the eternal covenant that was sealed in them. Next, the priest said that after the exchange of wedding rings, the ritual would be completed, and after a few seconds, two children carried the wedding rings of the newlyweds on a lush pillow, while Edith looked at them and admired them. Suddenly, she felt her husband Killian's gaze on her, and then mentally told him that she knew how he was feeling at this moment, so she wanted them to hurry up and get this over with as soon as possible. In the end, when the boy put a wedding ring on Edith's finger, she was a little embarrassed, because she saw that he was uncomfortable with even a light touch. Suddenly, something caught her attention. heard in the hall, which grew as it continued, and Edith, meanwhile, stood as if buried and did not know what to do next. After a few seconds, she pulled herself together and mentally told herself that nothing had changed, because in any case, he was not interesting to her at all. Suddenly, Edith leaned over to the little girl and patted her on the head, then thanked them for bringing the wedding rings, while Killian stood and watched it all without saying a word. However, when the girl got up and stood next to him, the boy looked at her in such a way that it seemed as if he would burn her right now. Standing in front of the altar, Edith reflected on the fact that at last she had a life in which she could take her time and enjoy peace, because now she could pursue her hobbies without fear of being hit by her father or older brother. The girl mentally asked that no one disturb her, because when she was reborn, she finally felt truly alive. Finally, when she got out of bed, her dress was too deep on the chest, which she was worried about, and her heels were too high for her, after which she decided that she needed to do better in what Edith likes. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door of her room, after which Edith let her in, but when she heard who was addressing her, she was even a little surprised. As it turned out, it was Lady Lies. Seeing her, Edith asked the girl if something had happened. At the same moment, the girl was surprised, because at that moment she realized that such an episode had already happened, just after the wedding itself. As it turned out, in that episode, Lies visits Edith, after which for Killian's rude behavior. But the young beauty's apology, on the contrary, angered Edith even more. After all, just as she could not blame the cold Killian, all her anger poured out on poor Lisa. At the same moment, Edith thought that she could finally understand why the Edith from the original work was so upset, after which she told herself that she had no reason to be angry with this little blonde goddess. In the end, Sweet Lies turned to Edith and told her that she would like to apologize for Killian's rudeness, adding that she hoped that the girl did not take too much offense at him. After all, he may seem cold from the outside, but in fact, Liza's bright and shiny blonde locks, as well as her large light blue eyes, which were pure and innocent. In the end, Edith singled out for herself that the girl with such a cute appearance and kind and righteous heart, she must be in any work. In the end, Edith looked at the young beauty, then smiled and told the girl not to worry, because she understands everything perfectly. After which she added that, in her opinion, everything seems to be quite difficult for both of them, because this marriage was an arrangement of their families. For this very reason, Edith told Lisa that she would not be offended by Killian. These words surprised the young beauty very much, after which she looked at Edith with her beautiful and at the same time surprised eyes, trying to say something. And meanwhile, Edith herself thought that if she did everything right, then her chances of duchy survival will go up quite a bit. After a few seconds, Lies took herself in her hands and, breaking into a sweet smile, told Lady Edith that she was very kind and quite mature. Edith admired the young goddess even more, after which she told Lisa that she was still no match for her, and in addition said that the girl had a pretty nice dress that suited her very well. These words of Edith made Lisa very shy. At the same moment, a confused Lies said that she must have confused Edith, after which she began to apologize and said that Edith must have been very tired. Looking at all this, Edith said to herself that Lies was so cute that she wanted to hug her, but nevertheless, she smiled and asked the young beauty to rest as well, after which she said goodbye. A few seconds later, when the young blonde left the room, Edith sighed in relief and wondered if the wedding episode was already over, then told herself that since she was alone, she could get some rest now. After that, the girl decided to take a bath, and when she lay down in it, she immediately felt the temperature of the water, after which she told herself that this hot water really made her feel alive. In the end, Edith told herself that since she was the future Duke's wife, she didn't need to think about making a bath because the maids did that. Then told herself that she didn't mind the lack of internet, because now she didn't have to go to work and cleaning the house, as well as the fact that now she does not have to think about the bank account, about the manager, and so on. After that, she relaxed and began to enjoy the hot bath to the maximum, at the same time thinking about how busy she would be, attending operas, hunting competitions, all kinds of picnics, parties, and balls. All of a sudden, Edith was surprised because suddenly she heard someone enter the room. As it turned out, it was her husband, Killian, who called her an unscrupulous bride because she began to take a bath alone, despite the fact that her fiancé was absent. The appearance of the boy, I was quite surprised by his appearance, because in the original book, the boy did not come to the room for brides. This reaction infuriated Killian, after which he asked the girl why she was so surprised, after which he added whether someone else was supposed to come here. To this question, Edith awkwardly replied that she thought he wouldn't come. Then the boy told her that she was quite clever. After that, the girl told him that it couldn't be otherwise, because at the wedding ceremony, he didn't even give her the opportunity to wear a wedding ring on him, and therefore she couldn't help but understand something. Suddenly, Killian leaned over the girl and asked her if she expected him to do weird flirtations and such. Meanwhile, Edith was thinking to herself that it was driving her crazy that Killian was such a hottie and at the same time an incredible moron. In the end, the girl understood the fact that she had no reason to hate Killian. Moreover, she didn't even have the strength to be angry, so she told the boy that she was just telling it like it was, after which she added that he would not be in this room was quite evident. After his treatment of her, what he heard surprised the boy, so he asked Edith if she was going to sleep in this bath. After that, he suddenly turned around and started to leave the room. This behavior of Killian quite surprised Edith, after which she asked herself why he came here in the first place. Walking down the corridor, the boy suddenly heard someone call his name, which made the boy stop and see who was calling him. As it turned out, it was young Lies, who surprisedly asked Killian if he was in the bride's room. To this, the boy answered in the affirmative, after which he added that Edith, just as he did not have any expectations from this night. Such an answer surprised the young beauty, to which she asked him what it all meant. Killian then said that Edith had climbed into the bath by herself and was taking a nap, which surprised Lisa even more, after which she said that Lady Edith was sure. But before she had time to finish her thought, Killian came up to her and put his hand on her head, after which he smiled and told her that she thought too well of everyone. Then he added that they all knew what kind of person Count Riegelhoff was. After that, he asked Lisa to think carefully whether the people of this family really have serious intentions. In the end, he told the young beauty that in this way, that family was just mocking them. At the same moment, Lies was surprised and timidly said that if everything was so, then the words of Lady Edith. In the end, Lies again couldn't finish the thought, because a surprise Killian asked her what exactly Edith had told her. At the same time, the young beauty looked away and told the boy that Lady Edith just complimented her dress, and she, in turn, immediately blushed from such a compliment. Killian was embarrassed to hear this, then asked Lisa why Edith had criticized her for a dress she didn't choose. At the same moment, Lies was very surprised to hear such a thing from him, after which she told him that Edith did not say such a thing to her. After which she asked the boy if it was possible that she was upset, to which Killian smiled after hearing such a question. After which he told the young beauty think about the dress that was on Edith. In the end, the guy asked if that was not why Edith reacted like that, because she saw such a not very luxurious, lewd dress, after which Killian said that Edith was behaving indecently. Hearing this, Lies was very surprised. Even more, she was very shocked, after which she asked the boy how he could call his own wife obscene. After listening to Lisa's accusation, Killian said that it was pretty brutal, then asked her if she had anything else she could tell him. Suddenly, the continuation of their conversation was interrupted by Cliff, who was happy to see Killian, because he was looking for him, after which he asked them why they were here and what they were doing here, because it was quite late. Seeing the boy, Liza's face was filled with incredible joy, and her beautiful smile spread across her face, while Killian stood behind, not saying a word, because he didn't know what to answer. The next day, Edith woke up in her bed and was surprised that even after all the agony she went through yesterday, she was able to wake up on time. After all, she felt great, and then told herself that this is the true strength of a healthy girl. Suddenly, she sat on the edge of the bed and thought that since she had a healthy body, she would think positively, and then told herself that if she managed, she could even live as a pretty cute daughter-in-law. Eventually, she got out of bed and walked over to the window, then told herself that Killian was a minor character who turned out to be head over heels in love with Lisa. At the same moment, Edith wondered if the boy's parents could be different than him. At the same time, the girl thought about whether Duke and Duchess Ludwig, who warmly welcomed Lies into their family, would be able to open their hearts to her as well, because during the first meeting, the atmosphere in the estate was not very good. After some time, the girl thought about the fact that one of the main rules for survival in a novel about reincarnation into the body of a villain is, of course, winning the trust of both the main and secondary characters of the work. After that, she told herself that if she really wanted to survive in the family of the Dukes of Ludwig, Then the opinion of the Duke and Duchess was much more important than the opinion of Killian himself. Suddenly, she thought that all she wanted most was to enjoy delicious meals and a quiet life in some corner of this estate. At the same time, Edith told herself that in order to make her wish come true, she definitely needed to win the Ludwig couple's trust, especially since no mother-in-law would hate a daughter-in-law who came to say hello from the very morning, the day after the wedding. Suddenly, she saw a bell that was attached to the wall. Then she went to it and curiously picked up its string. Then she told herself that it was the same bell with a string that she only read about in books. Then she thought that with the help of maids, it will not be difficult for her to transform into a real daughter-in-law. After ringing the bell, Edith saw a few seconds later a maid enter the room who asked her mistress if she had called for her, whereupon Edith told her to get her ready before she left. After a few seconds, Edith asked her maid what her name was, to which the maid told her mistress that her name was Anna. At the same moment, Edith asked Anna whether all the clothes she had brought with her from the previous estate were sumptuous and vulgar, to which the maid, without thinking for a moment, answered her mistress in the affirmative to this question. At the same time, the girl thought about the fact that if she wears something like this, it is unlikely that they will be happy for her. Because of this, Edith was very ashamed. After these reflections, she returned to the maid and asked her to go to the workshop to ask the craftsman to sew the dress so that the breasts were covered, and also to ask them to get rid of those disgusting ornaments. Of course, the maid had no other choice, except to accede to his mistress's request. However, such actions of the maid surprised Edith, after which she thought about the fact that the maid went to do everything she told her without any order from her side. After which, the girl said to herself that just as she thought, the maid and Riegelhoff were quite strange. At the same time, she took another dress and told herself that all the rest of the dresses would also need to be remade. Then suddenly, she looked at the bed and remembered that last night was the first wedding night, after which she thought about whether she should make some blood stains on the bed. However, Edith immediately dismissed those thoughts, because she understood that if she did it herself, then Killian would definitely not be happy about it. After all, just like in the original work, Killian was ready to devote himself completely for Lisa. After these thoughts, Edith smiled and told herself that a virgin handsome man was really very beautiful, after which she asked herself if it would not be too much to impose her sympathy on a minor character. Suddenly, she wondered why Killian had come to see her yesterday anyway. Then she wondered if he just wanted to pick a fight. But she sighed, because whatever it was very nice for her just to look at him. His beautiful face twice a day. At the same moment, Edith was approached by a maid who interrupted the session of her mistress's thoughts, after which she told her that everything was ready, at which Edith was surprised, because she did not think that everything would happen so quickly. Realizing what had just happened, the girl told herself that she must have lost her mind, because she had decided even earlier that Killian would not be interesting for her, and here, for some reason, she began to think about him. After a while, Edith came into the room of the Duke couple, after which, with a sweet smile, she told them that she had come to say hello and asked them if they had slept well that night. Meanwhile, Axel and Jocelyn Ludwig admired their new daughter-in-law. Suddenly, the Duchess turned to Edith and told her that she must have been quite tired yesterday, but despite that, she still came to them in the morning to say hello, after which she told her sister-in-law that she was worried that she was too nervous. To this, the girl said that everything is fine with her. At the same moment, the girl sat down on the sofa, then she smiled, because she saw a cup of tea that was standing on the table. Then she thought about the fact that this cup was intended for her. But, however, she thought about what rather after all, the Duke couple had already been told that Killian hadn't slept with her. When Edith took a cup of tea in her hands, Duke Axel turned to her, who told her that, as he knew, Count Riegelhoff raised her as his most beloved daughter. After which he asked her if she knew anything about the conduct of affairs as the mistress of an aristocrat's house. After hearing this question, the girl was not confused, rather, she was happy, because she had all the memories of Edith. After which she told the Duke that she knows how to deal with the budget, manage and work with documents. Then she added that it is possible in the duchy they do things somehow differently, but, nevertheless, she added that if she is taught, she will quickly learn everything. Meanwhile, the Duke was looking at her carefully and listening to everything she said. After that, he told Edith that it looks like Count Riegelhoff taught her how to do it. Only this. From such an answer, the girl fell into a stupor. However, she reflected on the fact that, as she had thought, the attitude towards her would not be entirely favorable. But she was surprised by the fact that the Duke spoke to her very rudely, as if she were some kind of thief who had come to steal documents. In the end, Edith turned to the Duke and said that if she did not deserve his trust, then let him teach her something else, especially since she would try as hard as possible. However, she was approached by Duchess Jocelyn, who said that Count Riegelhoff had taught her very well, and then told her that she would be able to help her in 2 weeks, after which she added that if she needed anything, let her, she is not shy and says now. For this, Edith thanked and asked the Duchess if she could put a person in her place, how she could introduce her to the estate. The Duchess was surprised at this, after which she said for Killian. However, she immediately realized her mistake, after which she said that she would find a good guide for Edith in parallel with her. The girl was thinking about what the Duchess wanted from a person who had not even spent the night in the bride's room on the first wedding night. After the Duchess had finished, Edith said she had to go, whereupon she got up and went out into the hall. At the same moment she breathed a sigh of relief, for during the conversation with the Duke and Duchess she had lost her breath, and so that she almost died there. At the same moment, someone came up to her and asked if she was okay, to which the girl was surprised, but still said that she was okay. But she was a little worried. Meanwhile, she carefully studied her interlocutor, after which she asked him if he was the same Baron Renan Filch. Having received an affirmative answer, Edith smiled and told Renan that it was nice to meet her, after which she asked the boy to take care of her. After all, the girl understood that the Duchess had instructed the Duke's assistant, Baron Renan, to introduce her to the estate Filch, who was the Duke's servant and was also responsible for his document flow, as well as Anna, who was put in charge of Edith. Renan did not mention in the original work, and therefore the girl was a little nervous, being with people about whom there was no information. At the same moment, Renan turned to Edith, after which he asked her if she would like to make a tour of the estate right now, after which he added that he had a lot of work today, and therefore he would not be able to allocate much time for the girl. Hearing this, she smiled sweetly and told the Baron that she was ready to start right now, thinking in parallel that sometimes it seemed to her that this was not just a world inside a book, but a real reality. After some time, walking along the corridor with Baron Renan, Edith mentally asked herself whether the characters, who were not in the original work, really had to be so straightforward. In just a few seconds, the Baron led Edith to the jewelry hall, after which he informed her that this is where the family jewels of the duchy are kept, which can be worn for various ceremonial events. After this, Renan led the girl into the room where the arms and armor were kept, whereupon he told her that these things were generally used only by his lordship the Duke and 2 other gentlemen, and that the armor and weapons themselves were made by the hands of famous craftsmen. Edith was pleasantly surprised by what she saw. The next stop of this tour was the great library, which was the heart of the duchy, in which a great many, all kinds of rare books were collected. At the same moment, Edith asked Renan if anyone could enter these places, or if they still needed to get special permission, to which the Baron told her that any member of the family could enter here at any time, after to which he added that they can also visit the Sistine Hall, where new works of art are exhibited every month. This answer of the Baron interested the girl, because in her past life she could not go to exhibitions, because the price of the ticket was too high for her, but now she can visit a real museum right at home. After a few minutes, Renan brought the girl to the Sistine Hall. After seeing all the beauty of this hall, Edith's breath stopped because she could not say anything. At the same moment, the Baron told her that since this estate is quite large, he would not be able to show her all the rooms today, and therefore he asked her to stay here today. These words did not upset the girl in any way. On the contrary, she thanked the boy for such an excursion, after which she added that she was pleasantly surprised by what a beautiful place she now lives. Suddenly, Edith told Renan that he had a very beautiful voice and that he was quite eloquent, and that is why she did not even notice how quickly this time flew by. What she heard surprised the boy quite a lot, because he did not expect to hear such a thing in your address. In the end, the Baron even blushed because of such words of the girl, but nevertheless, he told her that he was only doing what he had to, after which he told Edith that he would take her to those places of the estate that still remained to be visited. But the day after tomorrow, hearing such an offer, the girl happily agreed. After some time, when Baron Renan and Edith passed by another place, the boy decided to tell her about it as well, after which he added that this place was a large terrace. From what he heard, the girl was surprised and asked again. Then, Renan told her that this particular place is very convenient for looking at the courtyard of the estate. Meanwhile, the girl carefully considered everything around. After that, he continued and said that this place is often used when guests come to the estate, because his lordship, Duke Axel, quite likes to sit on this terrace and talk. Meanwhile, while Renan was telling all this to Edith, Cliff, Lies and Killian were sitting on the same terrace, drinking tea and talking, but Killian did not take his eyes off his beloved Lies. In the end, Edith still saw how her husband behaved in the girl's company. The Baron also noticed it. who was embarrassed by such a situation, because he did not know what to do. Pulling himself together, Renan decided to call Mr. Killian, and in the meantime, Edith was enjoying the view, not at all embarrassed by what she saw. Suddenly, the Baron asked himself aloud why the young gentleman was there after all. This question surprised Edith, after which she mentally told herself that Renan's surprise was quite natural, because how could a newlywed bridegroom drink tea with another woman in the morning? At the same moment, the girl looked away and thought about what Edith would have done in the original work. Suddenly, she smiled rather sweetly and told the Baron that it was indeed quite a beautiful place, and that it would be even more beautiful in the late spring. When Renan heard this, he agreed with the lady. At the same time, she told him that she herself would come here often, after which she turned sharply and asked Renan to leave quickly, because as he said before, he had to have things to do now. This behavior of the lady surprised him a little, but nevertheless, he had no choice but to accept her offer. After some time, Baron Renan came to Duke Axel's office, who asked him what he could tell him about Edith. Then the boy told the Count that the girl listened to him very attentively and, surprisingly, quickly understood the structure of the estate, after which he added that Edith liked the Sistine Hall the most. The Duke listened attentively to the Baron, after which he asked him if he had not noticed anything strange about her. To this, Renan replied that he had not noticed anything like that in her, after which he told the Duke that, despite all kinds of rumors, Edith had shown herself quite worthy. Suddenly, the Baron told Duke Axel that there was one unfortunate incident when he and Edith were walking across the large terrace, when the two of them came across Lady Lies, who was drinking tea in the company of two young gentlemen. Hearing this, the Duke was not very pleased, whereupon he told his Baron that he asked not to give any cause for complaint, especially since the Duke did not want Edith to see her fiancé flirting with another woman the morning after her own wedding. In the end, Duke Axel remembered explaining to his son that he needed to wait until the end of this year at least, so that Count Riegelhoff would not side with Archduke Langston, after which his son told him that he would be Edith's husband only on paper, and nothing more. At the same moment, Renan told his Duke that Ms. Edith did not even pay attention to Killian's bold actions. Hearing this, Axel was incredibly surprised. Then the Baron told the Duke that he did not know exactly what the girl was thinking about, but nevertheless, instead of creating a scandal, she simply walked away, pretending that she had not seen any such thing. Hearing this, Duke Axel thought, then said aloud that Edith Riegelhoff is a rather unusual girl. And in the meantime, Edith was just having breakfast, after which the maid Anna came up to her and told her mistress that if she finished eating, she would clean up after her, for which Edith thanked her maid. But still, she was a little embarrassed, after which she wondered if it was possible that she was uncomfortable because she tried to eat only at home, so it was not surprising that she could just sit and not help. Suddenly, she turned to Anna and told her that she had tried pretty well today, after which Edith told her to go and have dinner, and if anything was needed, she would call her. After hearing this, the maid fell into a stupor, because she had never heard such a thing from members of noble families. However, Anna bowed and thanked her mistress, but Edith was already a little dumbfounded, because she understood that these words of hers could arouse suspicion towards her. After that, the girl sighed with relief, because in her opinion, she made a good impression on the Duke and Duchess Ludwig, and therefore, now she will be able to breathe a little, because now she only has to decide how she should treat Lies. In the end, Edith understood the fact that Lies Sinclair was destined to become the main character of this world. But she also knew that Liza's life was not so simple until she got into the Ludwig family. Sinclair's son and daughter constantly abused Lisa, who was an illegitimate child, and the girl's home became a prison, where she was constantly oppressed. Due to the fact that the young beauty helped Duchess Ludwig not to fall from her mare, she attracted the attention of the woman. However, after learning about the cruel treatment of this good-natured girl, the Duke and Duchess were very angry. After that, the ducal family decided to buy the rights to the custody of Lisa for a huge amount of money from the Sinclair family. However, the Sinclair family, which hastily renounced parental rights to Lies, lost the opportunity to be related to the duchy. After which, after some time, they became very broke and regretted their decision. After all, by the end of the work, not a single positive character with a bad ending remained, except, of course, Edith Riegelhoff. And the real life of the girl who was reborn as Edith, we can say, was full of all kinds of troubles from the beginning to the end, because during her year of work in the company, her superiors abused their position many times. After that, she broke up with her boyfriend after a while via text when she saw him going to a motel with another woman, after which she went home and only thought that now she will only read novels on the internet. After all, the girl wondered what happened to Appa after he threw her down the stairs, after which she died, and she wondered if her mom and dad were sad when they heard about her death. But still, she told herself that her parents were probably more worried about Appa than their own daughter who had died. After all, Edith understood that now she also had only herself to worry about, not them. Looking out the window, Edith noticed Liz sitting under a tree and reading a book, after which she thought that instead of avoiding the girl, she should, on the contrary, go and make friends with her. At the same moment, the young beauty was approached by Killian, who asked her what she was reading. To this, Liz told him that she decided to read the history of the imperial family, justifying her desire by the fact that she never received a proper education. Suddenly, she smiled and blushed, then timidly told the boy that because she didn't know much, it was quite difficult for Duke Axel to determine her future here. At this, Killian looked at his beloved with a tender look, then told her that if she wanted to practice, he would be happy to help her, after which, he asked Lisa to contact him if necessary. Meanwhile, Edith watched this scene from her bedroom window, then, telling herself that what she saw was quite expected from a minor character. Further, she wondered what Cliff would say about anything in such a situation. To experience and live to one's satisfaction, well, or something like that. Closing the window, Edith told herself that she should not listen to other people's conversations, and even more so, go to them now, until suddenly she heard Liz asking Killian about where he left his wife and why he came alone. At the same moment, Edith still decided to listen to this dialogue further, after which, she heard her husband tell Lisa not to pay attention to that girl, referring to his wife, and then he told the girl that Edith is just a hostage who will stay in the estate for a while, then disappear. After hearing this, Edith still decided to close the window, after which she came to a conclusion about exactly how Killian thinks about her. Meanwhile, in another county, Layla is outraged. Sinclair, who was the youngest daughter of Earl Sinclair, was going mad. At the same moment, Damien appeared in the room. Sinclair, Layla's brother, who asked his sister what had happened, to which she told him that Edith Riegelhoff married Killian Ludwig. At that, the boy smiled, because now he understood why his sister was so angry. Out of anger, Layla bit her nails and asked her brother why Killian chose Edith, after which Damien told her that probably the Dukes of Ludwig have a hobby, namely collecting useless women. At the same moment, Layla noticed how her brother calmly reacted to this, after which she indignantly asked him if he was having a lot of fun now, to which the boy told her that he did not see the point of being upset. After hearing her brother's words, she calmed down a little, after which she asked him if he knew about anything. Damien stand there with a smug look on her face. Layla crossed her arms over her chest before telling her brother to hurry up and tell her everything so as not to waste her precious time. Edith and Killian played a wedding anyway. What would the two families get out of it, who married their children? At the same moment, Damien himself answered his question. He said that Count Riegelhoff had the right to distribute the iron ore that was mined in the southern mines, and therefore he had the raw materials for the manufacture of weapons. Hearing this, Layla asked her brother why it was all so important and what was the purpose of the weapon at all. He didn't expect such an answer from his sister, and therefore, hearing it, he laughed a lot. After which he asked Layla if she even understood how power is divided now. After that, he added that power is now divided between Archduke Langston, who dreams of becoming emperor, and the imperial faction that currently supports the young emperor. After that, Damien emphasized that it would be very dangerous if the Archduke's side were able to manufacture weapons. Finally, the boy added that the Duchy of Ludwig, which was a representative member of the emperor's faction, had to take Count Riegelhoff on a leash so that he, in turn, did not side with Langston. Hearing her brother's answer, Layla became even more angry, after which she told her brother that he should have explained to her why that marriage was necessary, and finally, she asked him if he was bullying her. At that, Damien told his sister that everyone already knows about it, after which he told her that the most interesting thing begins from this moment. At the same moment, the boy looked at his sister with a sly look, after which he asked her if Count Riegelhoff was really on a leash now. After that, Damien told his sister that one day, when he was walking down the corridor, he came across Count Riegelhoff, who was scolding his daughter for not following his instructions. Listening to all the dirt with which the Count showered his daughter, the boy realized that the image of the arrogant thief Edith Riegelhoff, as it turned out, was a complete fake. After hearing such information from her brother, Layla told him that this could not be, to which the boy told her that it was not easy to believe. But nevertheless, everything was as he said. After that, Damien said that now they just have to watch how events develop, and then added that if they reveal this information to everyone at the right time, then Riegelhoff will be doomed. Meanwhile, at the Ludwig family estate, Baron Renan gave a tour for Edith, where he showed her another exit to the large terrace, after which, the surprised girl told him that she had explored the estate little by little, but it still took her all week to bypass it completely. Suddenly, the girl told the Baron that she did not know what to do now, to which the man told her that she had no reason to worry about such things. After that, he told Edith that Duchess Jocelyn asked him to convey that she had a request for a girl. Hearing this, Edith literally blossomed and her eyes lit up with happiness, after which she asked Renan if the Duchess really said such a thing. At this, Baron Renan looked puzzled at the girl, who was almost crying with happiness. As it turned out, Edith was happy with this information because it was very difficult for her to just sit idle all this time. However, the girl turned to the Baron and pointed forward, after which she asked him if the Duchess's office was in that direction, clarifying whether it was the third door from the left. Then, Edith smiled sweetly at Renan, saying that thanks to him, she can now perfectly navigate this huge estate, after which she thanked him and decided to ask if she made a good student. At this, the Baron looked away and, adjusting his glasses, told the girl that it would be a shame if she forgot all the information he had been telling her all week. A few minutes later, Edith came to Duchess Jocelyn's room. When she opened the door, she saw that in addition to the Duchess herself, there was also a young beauty Liz, who as soon as she saw Edith, immediately smiled, after which she asked the girl to come in faster. Entering the room, Edith approached the girl and smiled at her, after which she asked Lisa if they would work together. And as soon as she received an affirmative answer, she immediately asked the young beauty to teach her everything she knew. After all, from such words, young Liz blushed like a beet, after which she told Edith that she should be glad that her mistress considered her capable of carrying out the errand. At the same moment, even Edith noticed that the girl blushed cheeks, after which, in her mind, she called her cute. Meanwhile, Duchess Jocelyn was watching the conversation between the two young ladies, after which she told them in a joyful tone that she was glad that they were getting along well with each other, at which Edith blushed and then began to apologize for, who did not greet her when she entered. In the end, the Duchess smiled and told the girl that there was nothing to worry about, on the contrary, because she liked seeing the two of them together. After that, Jocelyn turned to Liz and asked her to help with the documents. After a few minutes, Liz fulfilled the request of her Duchess. Moreover, she did not do it alone, because she had a new assistant who studied the documents with great enthusiasm and zeal. Jocelyn was nervously pacing the room as the girls did their work. Eventually, Edith noticed her Duchess' excitement and asked her if she was expecting anyone. Suddenly, Liz intervened in the conversation, who in a joyful tone told Jocelyn that Madame Edith did not know, after which Liz told Edith that the Duchess had recently summoned the tailors. At this, the girl was surprised, after which she thought about whether there was such an episode in the original work. Suddenly, a servant came into the room and informed the Duchess that the tailors from the royal workshop had already arrived and were waiting for her in the drawing room. Jocelyn was very happy to hear this, then turned to the girls and asked them to finish their business and come with her to the drawing room. At the same moment, Edith meekly agreed to the proposal of her husband's mother, thinking at the same time that she might remember that scene from the book when she found herself in it. And after a few minutes, the Duchess was sitting on the sofa and looking at the catalogue that the craftsmen had brought with them, while she was thinking that the older she gets, the more often she chooses designs of this kind. Along with Duchess Jocelyn, young Liz and Edith, who at that moment finally remembered a scene from the book, also viewed the catalogue. Suddenly, the woman turned to the girls, then smiled and asked them to help in choosing a design. Hearing such a request, Edith was a little worried, because she did not understand why they were asked to do such a thing, after which she told herself that, most likely, the Duchess would like Liz's choice the most. Meanwhile, Liz burst into a smile after hearing that, asking the Duchess if they could really do that. In the end, Edith reassured herself, because she understood that the result of this choice was already decided. Because even if you forget that Liz was the main character of the work, she could understand the tastes of the Duchess anyway, because she lived in her estate for 5 years. Suddenly, a joyful Lisa exclaimed that she was ready with the choice, which confused Edith, who was still thinking about the outfit. At the same time, young Liz pointed her finger at the picture of the dress, after which she told the Duchess that, in her opinion, this silk dress would perfectly emphasize her femininity and beauty. At this, the craftswoman told the girl that her choice was quite wonderful, adding that this particular dress was of the latest design and made of silk of the highest quality. Looking at all this, Edith was worried, because at that moment she understood that Liz had chosen the best option among all the dresses. Next, the girl thought about the fact that since Duchess Jocelyn has a fairly light skin tone, This dress would suit her face, especially since the blue color emphasized the Duchess's amber eyes quite well. At the same moment, Jocelyn turned to the intended Edith, after which she asked her if she liked everything among all the options. To this, the girl awkwardly said that it was difficult for her to choose, because the dress that Liz had chosen was quite beautiful in her opinion. But nevertheless, she showed the Duchess her choice, after which she added that if she wanted something new, then this dress will be just. Taking the catalogue in her hands, Jocelyn looked at the option offered to her by Edith, after which she was shocked. Meanwhile, a jubilant Edith told her Duchess that she thought the style would suit a woman on those days when she wanted to change her mood a bit. To this, Jocelyn told the girl that she has quite sharp eyesight, because in her opinion, few people would be able to appreciate the combination of such colors. To this, the girl did not say anything to the Duchess. Instead, she thought that in the eyes of a person from the 21st century, such a design would suit the Duchess perfectly. In the end, the Duchess thought about the choice, after which she asked the girls if it would not be too flashy design for her. These words did not surprise Edith, because she expected such an answer. But still, the girl understood that the older a person is, the more lavishly she should dress in order to look as good as possible. After all, Edith told herself that she was not thinking about winning this confrontation with Liz. Instead, she was just gathering strength in order to ever defeat the main character of the work. Suddenly, Edith began to praise the Duchess in every possible way, emphasizing that she would perfectly match this dress, because she has beauty and dignity. Such words, of course, pleased the woman, to which she told the girl that this time she would trust her taste, after which she turned to the craftswoman and ordered 2 dresses. And then she looked at Lisa and said that now it's her turn to pick up a dress for her too, which surprised the girl, because she did not expect to hear such a thing. After all, she was quite uncomfortable with such a thing, and therefore she said that she did not need anything, arguing that she already had quite a lot of different dresses. But those words of the girl did not stop the Duchess, because she continued to look through the catalogue in search of a dress that would fit Lisa, and after a few seconds, she found it. The woman liked the dress with a floral pattern, because in her opinion, that dress was as if it was made especially for girls. At the same moment, Edith also made her choice, because she liked the pink dress, but, however, she said that it does not suit everyone. After which, the girl said that since Lisa has pale skin and pink cheeks, then this dress is for her will fit quite well. Seeing the girl's choice, the Duchess told her that she had rather fine taste, after which she asked Edith what she thought of a white empire dress, while young Liz continued to talk about how she didn't need anything. However, no one paid attention to the girl's words, and Edith and Jocelyn continued to choose different options. In parallel with them, the craftswoman wrote down on a piece of paper the models of dresses that the women liked. After a few minutes, the Duchess turned to the dressmaker, after which she informed her that they had decided to stop at 5 dresses, while Edith noted that it was quite difficult to choose between the models. Suddenly, the Duchess realized that while choosing dresses for Liz, they had not chosen anything for Edith, after which she offered the girl to choose anything she wanted. For this, the girl said that she did not need new dresses. Saying this, she turned to the craftswoman and asked her if they accept dresses for recycling. At this, the woman smiled and answered the girl in the affirmative. After hearing such an answer, Edith was very happy, but the woman still decided to ask her what she meant by the word recycling. At the same moment, the girl said that she had several dresses that she would like to entrust to her, after which she turned to her maid Anna and asked her to bring the dress. In her mind, she understood that one of the rules for survival in the novel about resettling into a thief, this is the creation of an opposite image. When the maid brought the dress, Edith asked the dressmaker to remove all the valuables from the dresses, and also to close everything in the chest area. She reasoned that the too deep neckline of the bust was very uncomfortable. Taking the dress in her hands, the craftswoman turned to the girl and told her that it looks like her taste in clothes has changed a lot. After hearing this, Edith smiled sincerely and said that everything was so. After that, she continued to tell the craftswoman exactly what she wanted her to do, while the Duchess and young Liz looked on and wondered. After a while, Edith walked down the hall and was happy that she was finally done with it, while she was thinking about how much it would cost to collect all the diamond beads on the dress. After that, she told herself that she would continue to establish close ties with the Duchess, and therefore she decided to call her mother, until suddenly, her thoughts disappeared. After all, at the same moment, the girl saw her husband Killian, who was standing near her room. This surprised her very much, because she understood that he could not just stand near her room without any reason. Eventually, Edith decided to ask the man what had happened, but before she could finish her thought, Killian ordered her to follow him. He then told his wife that Lies wanted to invite her to tea. After all, Killian himself was not happy with such actions of his dearly beloved Lies. The information heard surprised Edith, after which she thought about whether there was such an episode in the original work where Edith was invited to a tea party. However, she decided that she would definitely remember it when she came to the tea party. Following her husband, the girl thought that, most likely, Lies had asked him to come to her room. At the same moment, she thought to herself that Killian looked beautiful even from the back, because she liked the guy's pumped shoulders, as well as the narrow waist. After all, Edith thought to herself that this was the first time that her heart trembled at the sight of a man's body. Suddenly, the boy turned towards her, and at the same moment, she looked away sharply and blushed in embarrassment. Then she asked herself if the boy had noticed the way she was staring at him. Finally, Killian turned to Edith and told her that he was warning her right away to watch what she said in front of Lies. What he heard threw the girl off track. Suddenly, the guy continued his monologue, saying that Lisa was more important to him than his own wife, because the young beauty was like a family member to him. Gathering her thoughts, the girl turned to her husband and told him that his words hurt quite a lot. This surprised Killian, because he decided to ask Edith if there was anything that could hurt her. In response, the girl told him that she was also human, to which the boy asked her if she was definitely a human and not a snake. Edith was quite struck by what was said, but nevertheless she told the boy that he was quite polite, after which she asked him if she should speak to Lady Lies according to the manners of the Duke's son. Next, she gathered her strength and told Killian that she felt like he was trying to ruin her mood and make her look like a horrible woman, after which she added that unfortunately for him, she's not someone who can be easily swayed. Such a speech surprised the boy. In the end, the girl did not stop and told Killian that it was another matter to hurt her, after which she proudly walked away from him while the confused boy stood and watched. After a few minutes, the young beauty Lies saw Edith, after which she smiled sincerely and invited Edith to join them as soon as possible. On this, the girl smiled and thanked her for the invitation. Suddenly, Edith was approached by Cliff, who said that he thought the girl was getting used to life on the estate, after which he asked her if she was taking on too much work. After all, he asked if she should go on a trip with her husband. Cliff reasoned that Edith had recently gotten married. At this, the girl smiled and said that her husband was quite busy. Meanwhile, she understood perfectly well that Cliff wanted to send Killian with her to take care of Lisa. Suddenly, Killian turned to his brother, then asked him if now was a good time to explore his lands, after which he added that winter was long over. At this, Cliff thought and told his brother that there was a point in what he said. At the same time, the guy turned to young Lisa, after which he asked her if she wanted to go with him. Then he added that once, she told him that she wanted to go on a trip somehow. The girl was surprised by this, because she did not know what to say next. Suddenly, Killian entered the conversation, who indignantly asked his brother why he was putting the girl in an uncomfortable position. Then he turned to Lisa herself and told her not to pay attention to his brother's words. At this, Cliff was surprised, after which he told his brother that Lisa would most likely be in an uncomfortable position when he was not around her, to which Eddie mentally agreed. After all, this trio was like a good brother and sister, but Edith perfectly understood what would happen if Cliff left. From the outside, everything will look as if these two have a love relationship, and therefore, the appearance of bad rumors about the lovely Lies will be inevitable. In the end, Edith looked at Cliff, then thought that the reason why the boy's thinking was quite different from the others might be because he was the main character of the work. At the same moment, the boy seemed to hear Edith's thoughts, after which he sharply turned his gaze to her, asking her what she was thinking about. From this, the girl was scalded as if by boiling water, because she abruptly scattered her thoughts, and then she decided to ask Cliff what he meant. At this, the boy smiled and asked her opinion that he would be the only one to leave this estate, after which he asked Edith to comment on the situation between her, his brother Killian, and the beautiful Lies. Hearing this, the girl frowned and thought that this question, which came from Cliff's lips, was too insolent. After that, she looked at the boy and said to herself that she understood that she was not in a position to count on love. But, nevertheless, she thought that it was too much to behave so brazenly. In the end, Edith closed her eyes and in a calm tone, told the boy that she didn't care, but she suddenly wondered if all the members of this family had no manners at all. After hearing such an answer, Cliff was already confused, because he did not think that everything would happen like that. And meanwhile, Killian, without saying a word, just sat. Suddenly, Edith told the boy that it was his duty as the first heir to the dukedom to look after his lands, so she had no right to make him go, or else she was mentally mocking him. Then a confused Cliff said to her that he didn't mean that. However, the girl ignored the boy's words and said that, For the time being, the trip for young Lisa, in her opinion, will be a rather difficult task. Edith then smiled and told Cliff that such a long journey in a carriage was rather difficult, especially for a fragile girl. After which she cynically told him that Lady Lies was not his wife at the moment, and therefore, in her opinion, it would be rather burdensome to ask a girl for such a thing. Suddenly, Edith turned her attention to Lisa, who was sitting next to her, and saw that she was thinking about something, which surprised Edith. And so, the young beauty turned to Cliff and timidly asked him if he needed to go to inspect the lands of the duchy right now. Meanwhile, the girl looked at the young beauty and mentally asked herself, did she think that the blonde behaved somehow wrong? But nevertheless, she understood that now she had to deal with a completely different character. At the same moment, Cliff smugly said that these were just words, arguing that their daughter-in-law had a rather generous heart. A few hours passed, it was getting dark, and in the meantime, Killian decided to go out into the fresh air to think a little.